This week we're going to start with fat loss. So let's jump right into fat loss. The question I got is, what is the perfect macronutrient ratio for fat loss? To be clear, there is no perfect macronutrient ratio for fat loss. There is a foundational macronutrient ratio that I tend to start with, and that is 60-30-10. That's 60% fat, 30% protein, and 10% carbohydrates. Basic lesson on this: if you don't know what macronutrients are, they're your main essential macronutrients, and that is fat, protein, and carbohydrates. Two of those are actually essential. They're required for human survival. That's fat and protein. Carbohydrates are not actually required for human survival. What a macronutrient ratio is you're taking the ratio of macronutrients that make up your total caloric intake. So if I say 60% fat, that means 60% of your daily calories are coming from fat. 30% of your daily calories are coming from protein. 10% carbohydrates are making up 10% of your total daily caloric intake. So if we do simple math on this, let's say you were eating 1,000 calories, which is ridiculously low. No one should ever do that. But if you're eating 1,000 calories, 10% of your daily diet being carbohydrates means you're taking in 100 calories of carbohydrates. The way you figure this out with nutrition facts is calories per gram. So 1 gram of carbohydrate equals 4 calories. 1 gram of protein equals 4 calories, and 1 gram of fat equals 9 calories. This is why for the past 50 years people have told you that fat makes you fat, because weight gain, weight loss has been based on the archaic idea of calories in, calories out. Burn more calories than you eat, you lose weight. Not true. Not all calories are created equal. You have to eat the correct calories. 100 calories from Pop-Tarts, not the same as 100 calories from grass-fed beef. Totally different. I had someone tell me that on Facebook once, so I like quoting it. They literally told me that Pop-Tarts is no different than beef. It's good it was on Facebook. I might have rear naked choked that dude. But anyway, 60-30-10 is my ideal ratio. So we're not going to get into crazy math. It's just I'm terrible at math. You don't want me to get into math, but I can do enough to get you through macronutrient ratios. I'm going to tell a story real quick about ideal macronutrient ratios. So with me, when people come to me for fat loss, I give them a very simple protocol. This is a list of foods you can eat. If the foods that you're about to eat is not on this list, you don't eat it. You can only eat from a very small list of foods that I give you. Well, I think it's a big list of foods. Some people say it's small, but I think it's big. So only eat these foods, and if your goal is fat loss, stay under 50 grams net carbohydrates. I want to touch on this because I had somebody comment on Facebook that thought I had said that 50 grams to 100 grams is ideal for fat loss. Not necessarily. I did say that if you're under 100 grams of net carbohydrates, you can still lose fat. It might not be rapid fat loss. So most people come to me looking for rapid fat loss. They want fast results, right? So that's what I try to do, and that 50 gram net carbohydrate is kind of the sweet spot for that. So I'll say only eat this list of approved foods, stay under 50 grams of carbs. For that reason, people track their carbs and nothing else, which can work. It works for a lot of people, but sometimes it doesn't. So my friend, she's watching. I won't say anything, but it's not a big deal. So a friend of mine just had a baby not too long ago and wants to lose baby pounds, right? Obviously, of course. But now keep in mind, having just had a baby, you're not doing intense workouts. There's no reason for it. You shouldn't be doing intense workouts. You're healing up, you're letting your body get back to homeostasis. You want to get back to normal after this traumatic event that has happened. So she was staying under 50 grams of carbohydrates and then asking me, hey, I'm not losing fat. I've been doing this for a while now and I'm just not losing fat. Where am I going wrong? I said, okay, for the sake of experimentation, let's have you track everything. So she came back, and I believe she was under 50 grams of net carbs, yes, but her macronutrient ratio was like 60 or 70% protein, which is just way too high. It's way too high for a sedentary person, and she has to be because she just had a baby. So she's not out doing CrossFit. If you're a CrossFitter, maybe you can creep your protein up 30%, 40%, 50%, something like that. But if you're sedentary and you're just taking in way too much protein, like 60, 70%, your body's gonna convert that into glucose and you're not gonna burn fat. So this is why it's really important to track in the beginning. But the foundational macronutrient ratio for fat loss, 60% of your daily calories come from fat, 30% of your daily calories come from protein, 10% of your daily calories come from carbohydrates. And that gets tweaked quite often. Like really strict keto people will go as high as 80, 90% calories from fat. They'll cut their protein down to 15%, 10%, take carbohydrates to 5%, 3%, 2%. They go really, really low. Some people just thrive on keto. I don't thrive on strict keto. I'm somewhere around 40, 50 grams of net carbohydrates a day. Sometimes 30, it just depends on the day really, but I don't try to just stay in ketosis. So ideal 60-30-10. The other part of this macronutrients for fat loss question is snacks. I always start this conversation with the same sentence. Stop with the snacks. I'm not going to tell you what I consider to be snacks because I think snacks should not exist. Food exists. There's food that exists, but when you come to me like, hey, this Cliff Bar is a healthy snack. No, the only reason you need a snack is because your blood sugar is spiking and dropping. Your insulin is spiking and dropping because you're carbohydrate dependent. If we get you to a point where you're fat adapted with a diet of 60-30-10, it might take 4 weeks, it might take 6 weeks, it might take 8 weeks for some people if you were eating 600 grams of carbs a day. Once we get you fat adapted, you don't need to snack anymore. So now that I've taught you about macronutrient ratios, if you look at a plate, if your macronutrient ratio, your fat, carbohydrates, protein, if your macronutrient ratio in that meal is correct, you should not be hungry. 3 to 4 hours later, even 5 hours later, you shouldn't be hungry. I'm almost never hungry. I eat when it's time to eat because I train heavy. So I train heavy, I have to eat. So sometimes I have to kind of force myself to eat because you just don't get hungry. When you get fat adapted, you don't get that same, what they call hangry, I need to eat right now or I'm gonna kill somebody. You know, that crazy feeling. That's the only reason snacking exists. It's once Americans became carbohydrate dependent, they needed to snack. And that's when you get a diabetic that's like, oh, I'm gonna pass out, and they sit down and someone feeds them a glass of orange juice or a Snickers bar. Why on earth would you do that? Why? It's insanity. It's insanity. You need to take care of the carbohydrate dependency first. So that's my disclaimer about snacking. You really shouldn't be snacking. You shouldn't be hungry enough to snack. When you're like, oh, I got to work at 9 a.m., now it's 10:30, and I'm about to die. I need to eat a Snickers bar, or there's only this bagel that I need that's 100% carbohydrates. Don't do that to yourself. The spikes and crashes are gonna just make your day horrible. You shouldn't need a nap at 3 p.m. You shouldn't be that tired. You're only that tired because you have a carbohydrate dependency, right?